I'm not in the same place I was when Steve was killed. I'm not in the same place I was even when Dennis was killed. So having this community of people that understand what I've gone through is a huge help.
Hello and welcome everybody to the C.O.P.S podcast. I am Blake Haynes, the multimedia specialist with concerns of police survivors national office. Joining me today, I've got Dave Wallace. Dave, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful, thanks. How are you?
Oh, absolutely doing well. Dave is a current board member. So Dave, can you let's go ahead and just jump into that really quick. What's it like being a national board member?
It is a humbling honor to be on the national board now as a South Central trustee, region trustee. I moved into this area, after spending all my life prior in California and was involved there. I got back here 2.5 years ago and told my wife that I wanted to remain involved. So, after a few months of getting settled and everything, I reached out to Jennifer Johnson with the Middle Eastern Tennessee chapter board and told her that I was interested in getting involved. And what was funny was I told Kim, my wife, I said, honey, here's my promise to you. I promise that I'm not going to run for president or the vice president or any of those primary positions. I just want to be a trustee. I just want to help out. I think I have some skills in this area that I want to stay involved in an organization that's helped me so tremendously. And so that was what I've done. And lo and behold, the wonderful Mary Carmichael, who was my predecessor on the national board, timed out in her term. And it was brought to my attention that there weren't any siblings on the board and hadn't been for a few years. And what I thought about running for it. And when I approached Kim with it, I told her, I said, hey, I'm not running for the president. I'm not, so I'm not lying, She just rolled her eyes and said she knew me.
Yeah, she's like, what can I do? What can I do?
I have 7 chapters in 6 states, and I have some absolutely wonderful people to work with. The chapter boards, each of them, they work very hard to represent the survivorship in their regions and their chapters. I am blessed to work with people like yourself and the national staff. First of all, I wanted to commend you on the video you did that came out today with you and Tony's work on honoring Jay Carruth and Mama Pat and just the Carruth family and everything that they've given back since his death and the legacy that they have left or that are leaving, even they're still making. I mean, it's not like it's in past tense, but it's just fabulous. And then to be able to work with some very dedicated people on the national board, it's just a tremendous honor. It really is. And I'm very humbled and appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. And we're very appreciative of you and having you and all your hard work and really giving back to the survivors, in your area. It's phenomenal. You do a great job.
Thank you.
And for those of you that don't know, Dave comes to us. He's actually got dual survivorship. So Dave is not only a surviving sibling of Deputy Sheriff Dennis Wallace, but he's also a surviving coworker. As he will say, he's got many coworkers that he has had give the ultimate sacrifice. And Dave, just can you put into words for us, what is it like having those 2 survivorships? Or is there differences within maybe your grief?
Well, yes, no. I mean, I was a coworker first. My squad sergeant, Steve May, was involved in a wreck in July 30th of 2002. And Steve was in a coma for 7 years, never came out of it, and passed away July of 2009. The county isn't terribly small, but it's not, not the biggest county in the world. And our agencies in our county, Stanislaus County, California, worked a lot together and a lot of overlapping. So, there was 9 officers, sworn personnel killed in my 29 years there, and 2 more non-sworn that were killed in the line of duty, along with multiple off-duty officers and friends. it becomes a family, and you're often, around your coworkers more than you are around your actual family. And trust me, my wife let me know once in a while that, hey, come home, come, and on the teams. But why I say it's different, but yet in a way it wasn't. Um, my brother Dennis was one of those coworkers. Dennis and I both were in law enforcement. So when he was killed, I lost my actual brother, but I also lost a brother officer. And what factored into that was like for the funeral and for the grieving process, it allowed me the insight. I know there's a lot of stuff that we focus about. A lot of the memorial tributes are dedicated towards family, and there's kind of a hierarchy of things. Left off to the side often are the coworkers, and we forget that they're family too, and in a different role. But law enforcement becomes a family, and when you're putting your life at risk and trusting others around you, you get to be pretty close. When they're trusting their lives with you, like I said, they become every bit as much as sometimes if my actual family members or distant family members are.
Yeah, that blue bond.
It really is.
When it comes to others, whether it's coworkers, whether it is family members, support individuals, that you have in your everyday life, did you see like maybe differences in how they approached you, treated you, following the deaths?
Following the death? Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, you and I had spoken previously about, my buddy Bo. I'll just call him by his nickname. And great young cop that was one of the first guys on scene at my brother's death. And my brother was shot and killed just outside, probably about 5 miles outside of Modesto, which was the city I worked in, was the largest city in our county. He was out at a fishing access just outside the smaller city of Houston. And when the call went out for all hands on deck, anybody available, it's not uncommon for officers from multiple agencies to roll. And Bo was, I believe, the second or third guy there. And it was pretty quickly apparent that Dennis wasn't going to survive. My brother Dennis wasn't going to survive this incident. He was shot in the head. Bo and I were working at the time on the same team together. And I noticed afterwards when I would approach him and ask him, hey, how are you doing? He was standoffish. He didn't want to talk, or he would duck out if he saw me coming, that kind of thing. And so finally, one day out in the parking lot, I just walked up to him and I just told him, I said, hey, something's got to give here. We work together. I know what you saw is tremendously traumatic. I mean, come on, I'm his brother, but we got to deal with your grief too. And you can't avoid me your whole career, dude. It's just not going to happen. And I said, I'm not going to tolerate it. Basically, I told him I was going to kick his butt if he didn't straighten up. And he just started sobbing. And he finally let the emotions out. And he was feeling guilty that there was nothing he could do. And like there was nothing he could do. There's nothing any of us could do. I mean, that in that situation, all the best intentions in the world weren't going to save Dennis. And at that particular point, and I found myself in what you would consider a reversal role. But, part of it too is, I was blessed that I'd been on our peer support team at the PD for a few years, and I had already been to several TLEs and other things along that line to help me, equip me to talk things out with coworkers. I remember the day after Dennis was killed, they had a huge diffusing. Obviously there was probably over 100 people in this room, this big conference room, that had shown up that day at some point throughout the investigation, and people were just hurting, and I was walking by the conference room with the one of the detective lieutenants, and I told him, I said, hold on, I said, I'm going to step in the room here. And I just told people, hey, let it out. Let it out. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to cry. It's okay that this sucks. I thank you guys for everything you tried to do. And from the bottom of our hearts, our family loved you and we appreciate you. But you got to take care of you too. We got to take care of the scars that we have. As far as I'm talking about my law enforcement brethren and sisters.
One of the things that we hear quite often here at the national office when it comes to like the retreats and just in general, whether in terms of, National Police Week or what have you, right? Just basically the organization in general is it's a family that no law enforcement family, no law enforcement, no coworker wants to be a part of. Quite frankly, they just don't for good reason. But they are so happy that if they have to become a part of it, that we're there to provide support and to get them in contact with other survivors that, have walked their path or a similar path that they are either currently on or, what have you. Right. So can you kind of talk to me about that? Like, what is that like for you?
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolute true. Unfortunately, there's only one way into this family fraternity, whatever you want to call it, and that is through the tragedy of losing somebody that we love or care tremendously about. And no matter what the survivorship is, whether it's a sibling as myself, or a coworker, or a spouse, or a parent, or adult child, or niece or nephew, or extended family members, there's only one way in, and nobody wants it. In part of the, I don't want to say joy, but part of the release and relief when you come to C.O.P.S and you realize that, hey, we're here. The Concerns of Police Survivors is here for this purpose. It's a huge release. It's a huge relief that there's people that understand me. I've told new survivors, it could be the most beautiful day. You could be picture the most beautiful place in your mind that you like to go to. And you could go there and it could be the prettiest day, and yet you're still blue. Yet you're inside, you're just tore up. And what normally would be somewhere that make you happy, you're not happy, or you're at some function or things that you would normally enjoy, and people don't get it. Especially well-intending people, bless their hearts, who say, "Oh, you got to get over it. You got to move on," and you don't ever move on. There's the reality. I mean, you don't ever lose that grief in that sense that you never lose. My brother Dennis now is November 13th, 2016. The trial was finished this last May. It's almost been a year now. By the grace of God, I don't think of much about the guy that killed my brother. He's been put away in prison, but I think about my brother. I think about Dennis often. We talked on the phone on average between 5 and 10 times a week. He would call me. We were golfing buddies. We refereed high school football together for years, and we did social things together as a family. And I was blessed. Kim and I went to dinner the night before he was killed with he and his wife Mercedes, and it's one of the most cherished moments that I will have. Is that last hug and embrace with him, and being the bigger of the two. A few years before he passed, I used to bear hug him and I'd kiss him on top of his forehead up here, because he was balding before I was balding, and initially it ticked him off because the brothers being ornery, but it got to the point over the last couple of years that he would just walk up if he go like, "Hey, I got to go because I got to be at work in the morning." So he'd give me a hug and he just put his head down, like, "Go ahead, do it," like, get it over with. Those are the things you remember, and they don't go away. I likened it, law enforcement is pretty good as a whole in holding ceremonies. And like when the funeral takes place, the officer dies, and if the agency's worth their salt or has the ability, they'll have somebody with that fallen officer basically around the clock. There'll be somebody there. They'll see somebody to help the family out. And there's a huge outpouring, at least in the area that I worked, that's the way it was, and it wasn't just the one single agency. The other agencies would come at their aid. I spent 20 plus years on our department's honor guard, and I've stood at caskets during the the closed hours at funeral homes, just guarding my brethren, because that's what we're supposed to do. And same thing happened with Dennis. But one of the things that I had to tell the family, the greater family, about, I gathered them a couple days before the funeral, and I told them, I said, guys, listen, it's a tremendous honor to be able to guard your fallen brother or sister. I said, and if you notice that everybody's bent over backwards, I said, but here's what you also need to know. Come sundown on the day that we bury Uncle Dennis, all this is going to go away. All these people are going to go away. They're going to go back to their normal lives. We're not going to have the officer or deputy posted at the house, at his house. We're not going to have the guys posted at the funeral home and running and getting, errands for people and stuff to help take care of, all this pomp and circumstance and all that disappears, because it has to. Life has to move on. We have to learn to move on in the right way. And that's where I believe our organization comes in so mightily, is that we stay here. When everybody else is gone and all the other ceremonies are, as the drums are off in a distance, C.O.P.S is here. We remember, and that's where that secondary family comes in. That's where the family that you didn't realize that you had. I am terribly blessed to have so many great connections and wonderful people across this country. In particular, I will tell you about, like our siblings. We have a face page group that's just siblings and a few significant others. We get it. We can walk into a room full of siblings and just get each other. We get it because we understand, regardless of the circumstances of the death, we get the circumstances of our role in the family, and the same thing with coworkers. I don't have to impress when I walk into a room full of coworkers, just by the fact that they do what they do. I don't have to go out and lay a foundation as to who I am and what I've done. They're just accepting. I mean, they're accepting of me as another coworker, and there's huge relief in that. Huge relief.
Without some of those connections, where do you think, grief-wise and even everyday life, where would you be?
It would be much, much harder. I'm a person of faith, and so I will tell you that first and foremost, I have a wonderful wife of just past 33 years, and Kim is huge in her support of me, and as we walk through this grief journey together. But without having my coworkers, without having my sibs, it would have been much harder. I think eventually I would get there, but it would be much harder in the sense that, again, like I said, you to be able to go somewhere and have some people that get you. They get your passion. They get what you're, just the understanding of all that encompasses grief in this form. They're I'm not say everybody, but there people across this world have suffered grief. The person who's killed out on the highway, or killed in industrial accidents, their families suffer grief too. And I appreciate that. I'm not trying to discount that at all. But there's something to be said about somebody who goes and stand that line and volunteers to put themselves in harm's way. And then when it actually happens, I don't know, there's just, to me, any of the emergency services, military or similar type atmospheres, when you go out there to protect people and put yourself on the line for others, it's an honor to do it, but it's heavy. It's heavy. And so having this community of people that understand what I've gone through is a huge help. It's a huge, I'm not in the same place I was when Steve was killed. I'm not in the same place I was even when Dennis was killed, and it's through the networking. It's through some one-on-one counseling sessions with our mentals, with our counselors, which they don't get enough credit for all that they do. again, I'm just so blessed that I have this family to help me walk this journey.
Whether it was your first SIBS retreat, whether it was your first coworkers retreat, when did you look around? When did you know I'm where I need to be?
I won't say it's a specific moment. I will tell you that I remember, going to police week when Dennis was killed. So this would be, May of 2017. And Tammy McMillan and I were already good friends. I was already on the C.O.P.S board. I was a trustee at the time. Actually, I think I was an officer liaison. I was a trustee at that particular time. And she didn't ask me. She told me I was going to C.O.P.S. And Patty Wolf and they're the ones. I think Andrew Arrington was in there too. And they were three SIBs that were putting on the little breakout session about, and it was just SIBs that were in that room. I was like, hey, come, trust us. And having been involved in peer support, having been to TLEs, having been to, other, police week multiple times and been to the COPS conference, I knew enough to trust, that, okay, I'm going to go. And when I got there, they just loved on us. They loved on me. They basically said, we got you. We get you. I guess it was going to say it'd be that. I went to Coworkers for Couples. My wife and I did a few years after that. Being a high school football official, unfortunately, siblings and coworkers are during football season. And, I was a crew chief at the time. And so it was hard to take, weeks off during the season. And I always took SIBs off. So it's my plan to go to Coworkers this year, though.
When you're looking around and you see, maybe put yourself in Tammy's shoes, right? And you're speaking to individuals that maybe on the fence, maybe you're reserved, maybe they're not sure, right? What would you tell them? Hey, get there. Like, what would your spiel be?
I tell them, trust us. Tell them often a couple stories about people who were nervous. I can tell you, one of the ones I love to brag about is Jamie Tomey. She was trembling when she got off the bus. She arrived. She trusted it enough to get there. But still, I think if she had a chance, if somebody said, hey, I'll take you back to the airport right now, she would have done that, right from the front door of the Trout Lodge. But she didn't. We grabbed onto her because there was enough people that we came, the welcoming committee, it was the bus that broke down. So that even added more to it on the way out to the lodge. So there was even further delayed. But the group, Amy Williams, Jamie, I just remember them. They were just terribly nervous. And we just loved on them. We told them, hey, it's going to be safe. You're okay. And I tell you what, now you see the involvement that they have and the excitement and just the ambassadors that they have become. It's just amazing. And I will tell you that probably one of my most cherished moments this last year at Police Week was on the way to the national service on the 15th. There were Jamie and a couple of sibling survivors. We were riding and we took the metro, and as we were walking, we got to talking with this family, and one of them's another sibling. And so we started telling her about come to the sibling retreat, and we escorted them, showed them where to go to check in there. Their brother was being honored, and so where they were going to go sit but just being able to this happened three different times. It happened during one of the breakout sessions where the debrief. I went and sat through a debrief, and one of the families whose brother was shot and killed later ran into them that night down at the wall, and to be able to do some rubbings for them, and it's just the relationship part of it, just being real, saying, hey, we get you, we've been there, and we understand. We understand your grief, and you don't feel guilty for grieving. We get it. Let it out. Let it out. So to be an encouragement is a blessing.
When I say cops, what do you think of?
When I think of concerns of police survivors, I just think of a family. I think of a tremendous organization that loves me and has loved my family, and cares about my people. When I say my people, talking about my law enforcement brethren and sisters. It's not easy. I mean, I think y'all crazy. I mean, I mean, think about that. What's your job? To care about the hurting, to care about people going through trauma, people who have suffered loss, and to do it with a smile, and to do it with the skill that the staff does, and the many volunteers. It's hard to describe. There, and I tell people about the roller coaster ride, and that you're going to go emotionally. There are times where it's okay to laugh and have joy, to start thriving. Our lost loved ones wouldn't want us to wallow in pity and wallow in sadness all the time, for lack of a better term. They would want us to move on with life and be joyful. Life's to be lived. And C.O.P.S has been a huge, huge boost in my ability to do that. It's one of the reasons I ran for the board, and it's just to give back to, because they've given me so much.
You've been absolutely tremendous. Just to see you at the retreats. I mean, I've attended with you a couple different times now, and I will be seeing you again this fall. So that'll be great.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And just to see some of the volunteerism and the giving back, not just from, you commend and you thank the staff, but the peer support factor that is there that we see constantly. It makes what we do 100% worth it. It is amazing to see connections that are made and just be able to give back. So thank you for saying that. It is an honor to be able to provide the services that we provide and to work at such a great organization that does so much for so many individuals nationwide. And Dave, thank you so much for sitting down and talking with us. And if you would like to get more involved with your local chapter or just find out more information about the organization in general, you can go to our website at concernsofpolicesurvivors.org or give us a call at the national office at 573-346-4911.